So just a kind of little bit of housekeeping. You can ask the questions in the chat and I'll get to them later. Connor's going to give you a little presentation through this, but I just want to reiterate, like, every experienced business buyer right here understands the critical importance of cultivating a robust pipeline. You've got to have the at-bats. You just got to have an abundance of deal flow, because that's where you get your deals. If you don't have an abundance of deal flow, you just create, you just make bad decisions on the one you think is the best one right in front of you. So if you're in the private equity business and you're on here, thanks for joining. We know you have to allocate capital wisely, and the cost of building an effective acquisition pipeline is essential. So what I was going to say was the most advantageous deals often remain from public view. A lot of my students that come on, I say, hey, start with the low-hanging fruit, which is on-market deal flow, where all the brokers do the work for you. They cultivate the deals, they do direct marketing, and then they put it out a market with a motivated seller. But a lot of the times, you start looking for a specific type of business. Let's say an HVAC business in Tucson, there's only 20 or 30, maybe 5 meet your criteria. Then you don't know what to do next, right? You could either start with, there's kind of two off markets. There's the off market where you have a center of influence. You're talking to wealth managers or CPAs or attorneys and doing a lot of networking, but that takes a long time to get fruit from a tree you just planted yesterday. It's just not going to happen. It takes a long time. So the other way to do it off market is reach out to these people directly. And that's what we're going to talk about with Connor today. And this is why you're here, because you want to discover a treasure trove of off-market deals. Connor's been doing this for a couple of years and he's got a system down. You also want to gain a competitive edge. You want to navigate through crowded broker market. You want to avoid bidding wars, and you want to secure deals at prices that give you an advantage. What happens is, like, if you went to Website Closers right now or FE International, he gets 10 serious big offers on every deal he lists. So you're going to get into a bidding war with somebody. You don't want that, especially if you're a financial buyer versus a strategic buyer. And then also, once you get these off-market deals, you're going to be able to offer a little bit better creative financing solutions. Because if you get a lead from an off-market deal, they're going to go through this process of, well, what's it worth? They're going to find it. If you get a good relationship with it, you may be able to get a fair value on the business and a more creative solution. So this webinar is designed for both veteran investors and those new to field, whether you're strategic or a financial buyer. So I want you to say goodbye to overpaying and bidding wars. It's all about getting to the best deal first. And that's what we're going to talk about today with Connor. And I am going to give Connor the controls. So 1 second. Where is that? All right, there you go. I just want to make sure I'm recording and I'm live on YouTube. What's up, Rodney?
Perfect. Hey, Rodney. Hey, man. Connor, nice to meet you here. Nice to meet everyone. I'm super happy to talk to a full room here. This is fantastic. Like Jon said, he likes to pretend like he's funnier than I am, but I think I might be a little bit funnier. We'll see. We'll take a vote afterwards, but excited to get to talk to you guys, ask some questions in the private equity SMB space, but then talk about Cairo. I'm joined here with my co-founder, Braden. Braden, if you could wave right there. If you see his face and understand a little bit more of our partnership together, he is the smartest person on planet Earth and is the entire reason this entire company exists. So because of him, he's shaking his head, he's humble, but our little partnership has blown up, in my opinion, over the last 4 years. But I do want to give a little bit of a background. Jon, you gave me screen sharing ability, correct?
I did.
Cool. I'll pop that open in a second. But Braden and I actually met in 2016. So we did traditional normal investing. Was actually involved with lots of wealth management, financial planning at a very large financial institution. Did that for a number of years, 4 years until 2020. And we both decided to break off, do our own things with our own firms to kind of coordinate, work with our clients. 2020 changed for a lot of people, as you guys know. These clients, we had some mutual clients actually ask and make requests for tons of alternative investments. So think of, the biggest one for us then was the commercial real estate. So we did a lot of underwriting, research, analyzing different deals, building spreadsheets, basically finding anything and everything for these different investment opportunities that they had. And it went really well to the point where they said, "Hey, this is great. Can you find me more deals just like this? Can you go off market and maybe find some industrial properties just like this?" And we said, "We don't know how to do that in 2020, but we're game to give it a try, and we'll figure things out and build systems and go from there." And then it took off like a rocket. We started getting more and more clients. We started making a bunch more hires, hired out half the Philippines right now, it feels like. And so 4 years later, there's been a natural, pretty obvious bleed into private equity and the S&B world, where we had a bunch of mutual clients and other people say the same thing. "Hey, these are great investment opportunities. Can you find me some just like this, biz buy sell link, that are off market? This is exactly what I'm after." And we said yes. So we've built this entire company on the back of being able to find off market opportunities. And like John just said, we're doing what no one else is really doing, which is just going off market. All the leads sourced are off market. They're not listed with a broker or anywhere else, because our entire mission statement is escape the competition. If we find you guys a business or an investment opportunity, we want you guys to not only have all the tools and resources to go after it, but you're the only bidder. There's no bidding war. You get to dictate with 1, 12, 40 different businesses just exactly how you want to structure the deal. And we want to give you those tools. So, Braden, before I hop into other things, you want to give a little intro on yourself?
Yeah, man. Hello, everybody. It's great to meet everyone. There's not much more to say. Connor really covered a good chunk of it. At the end of the day, I think our passion really lies in helping people, especially on the investment side, find the best deals that are going to make the most wealth for them, right? Oftentimes on the broker side, you work with brokers who their full intention is getting the best deal for the seller because that's where the commission lines their pocket. One thing with us is we wanted to avoid all commission and acquisition fees and things like that. And we said, "Hey, what if we just help people get really wealthy?" My personal philosophy in life is build your community up and your community will build you up. So if we're not greedy in the short term and the long term, we all become best friends and we all get wealthy together. So that's sort of the mission of Cairo, is find really great deals for people, help them become wealthy, and we'll all become friends, and it'll be great. So long-term vision for us, that's sort of the mission behind Cairo, and our vision. So that's the quick intro. Back to Connor.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, like we said, guys, sourcing, finding opportunities off market is a specialty. I'm going to go ahead and try to share screen here really fast, John. I don't know if this is giving me a little issues or what, but let me try it again.
There you go.
Perfect. Okay. I seem to see things that I need to on my end. Can you guys see my screen okay? If not, just pretend to nod and make fun of me later. You
You're
can,
good to go. We're
yeah,
in.
blast me online. Go to the YouTube comments on John's video later and just be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what the heck is Connor doing?"
Comment all the terrible
That
things.
would be fun. But yeah, company name, Cairo. Mission, like I said, escape the competition. We want to source and do everything off market. Um, Simply what we do, we have 3 different teams that we currently employ. So the first team is sourcing and qualifying all leads. So what we start with in just our baseline package is working with people that are after a certain type of business with revenue, EBITDA metrics, whatever you name, right? So they could hop on an onboarding call with us and say, "Connor, I want HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and kitchen remodeling companies in Texas, Ohio, Florida, and North Carolina," whatever they say. "And I need, 2 million in revenue and at least 1 million in EBITDA," whatever that might be. And so we take all that information, we build out a buy box, is what we call it. And then we have a team, like this first team says, just sourcing qualifying leads, build out a spreadsheet of 1,000 leads, actually a little 1,000 plus, but deliver that via email and then Google spreadsheet before we even begin processing to do a full review of, hey, are these the leads and companies based off everything online that we can see? This seems to be checking the boxes, but is this good to go? Once we're all on the same page after a full review, we do what we call just an initial outreach. This team right here handles everything from like emails, texts, maybe a couple phone calls of trying to gather interest in terms of these off-market businesses that could be interested in selling. So we'll send out an email that could be like, hi, my name's Jon Stoddard. I'm a fellow business owner in the area. I saw your business. It checked a lot of boxes for me. I love what you've built. Are you open to hearing offers? And rinse and repeat. Tons of communications, dozens, trying to be very friendly, professional, but persistent. We want people to tell us, no, we're not interested, or yes, we are. And we're getting all of those leads to keep funneling down the channel. Thirdly, we have our third team, which is probably what we get most of our business from. These are a team of cold callers that are all professionally trained that we use to come over the top for people that are really just interested in, hey, yes, you're a business owner. You said you're maybe interested in selling. That sounds great. Are you really in a spot to sell, or do you just want to hear a big number? Fantastic. You're really in a good spot. What was your revenue last year? What were the last 3 years of P&L? What were, et cetera. So they come in, they qualify these leads, they actually determine, does it check all the boxes for our clients? And then once those boxes have been checked, they actually schedule the appointment on whatever calendar you guys give us. So our clients give us a specific calendar. They say, here you go. And then we book all appointments directly to that. So we go above and beyond to try to make sure this is as quality as possible. Like I mentioned, we do it so we give about 1,000 leads. Results wise, what we try to give is 1,000 plus leads. It's 3 months with 3 teams. We have a 1.5 to 3% success rate of just booking appointments. So these are companies that have, hey, we're interested. This could be a good spot to talk. I really want to know more about what your offer is. Maybe we can discuss. My business, with all the criteria, checks all the boxes you've outlined. Let's hop on a conversation. We could set it as a phone call, face-to-face meeting, or a virtual call, just like this. So we're very easy and flexible to figure out what's best for everybody. So out of the 1,000 leads, I mean, as you can see at the bottom, simple math, it's 15 to about 30 companies that we can set appointments with on your calendar over a 3-month span, and then get you, yes, hopefully all of those contacts and discussions and more. But just like Jon said at the beginning of this call, the answer is volume. Like, how do I know if I'm examining a good deal? Well, I'm having 5 conversations this week. One guy that we actually helped close a business on 2 months ago, he was after landscaping businesses. He talked to a few. One of them had an EBITDA, that means net profit, of 800,000. And he closed on the business in all cash for just 880,000. Craziest deal of all time. He's a huge success story. He loves us, so we love pushing him, people to him. But yeah, I mean, we find out exactly what people want, we build it out, and then we scale it just like this. The onboarding steps, like I mentioned, are pretty straightforward.
Let me ask you a question about.
Go for it. Yeah, I'm rambling.
If let's say I've got one of my students, Rodney, he's in a town, and he knows how to get access to the 30 HVAC companies or something in that town. What do you recommend? Sure. Like I've already talked to everybody in my town. They don't want to sell, or they're just not very good companies. What do you do after that?
If he's wanting HVAC companies in the same town, or you're just saying like,
or just like, what do you do? Like, well, Rodney, you got to go outside your state or your city.
Well, if he's had the conversations with tons of different people in that town and they've all turned him down, let's say he's had the 30 or 40 calls, we would go through on that onboarding call, determining what is the exact business that you're after. Like, are we so narrowed or niche down that it has to be HVAC, or does it have to be a similar business model? And if it's this type of business model with an operator or maybe some key employees and it's a, employee structure or headcount of 10 plus people, then we say, here's some other options. We're also seeing a ton of data from people that are after HVAC companies that are also after these other industries. I don't know if you've talked to these other industries in your town, but would you be open? We have that data. So I would take it in that way to understand what's better, or I guess more niche down for what Rodney wants.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the answer I was kind of looking for, because everybody's looking for an essential service, right? With
Yeah.
reoccurring revenue, enduringly profitable, good margins, ethical business that's been around for, 10, 20 years.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense. I mean, these are very good businesses that people want and should go after. In my opinion, what we are just building out is the ability to have that volume, to have those conversations, and then they're basically playing the compare game themselves. Oh, I talked to this company, they're selling for 1.1x EBITDA. Guess what? The guy that closed on that business just told everyone else, no, I'm not interested, because he was able to close on that one. And that was obviously the best looking deal, right? So when you're evaluating, like you said, Jon, dozens of different deals, you can start to become really good at what's good and what's not. And that's what we're after to try to push for people. But main reason being off market, we really cater to building out customization. Currently, we're working with over 170 clients right now in terms of just a VIP targeted search. So we're really trying to hone in on, hey, what exactly are you after business model wise? If there's specific industries, headcount, revenue, EBITDA, yes, everyone wants great cash flowing businesses, multi years old, but let's really figure out what that is. And then it's kind of like a walkthrough to build out that list and then do all of the communication so that they're only spending their time. Our clients only just hop onto these, let's call it Google Meets or Zooms or phone calls, and the seller's ready to go. They're like, hey, how's it going, Jon? I've heard so much about you already. I'm glad you're interested in my business. Love talking to your representative. This is what I'm thinking. Would love to meet for coffee or go over these different things to make it a more catered approach for you.
And that's basically what private equity firms do, right?
Pretty much.
They have somebody else doing all the legwork and they deliver the lead to you and you just talk to the owner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. I mean, consider us your own personal private equity firm, your own team and multiple teams that just handle catering exact conversations directly to you. So, we get that search criteria in step one. We have an onboarding call. Number two is build out that list of leads. We go through a full review. First step of initial outreach is just text, emails, calls. Then we have step four of a more qualification process and then information gathering with our cold calling team. And at the same time that they do that, they book appointments directly to your calendar so that we can say, hey, 15 to 30 companies over the 3 months. We would love to generate tons of conversations. You can go in, share about yourself, build rapport, build that relationship, but then start negotiating, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the service in a whole. I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of questions.
Yeah.
Honestly, haven't been looking at the chat, so let me pull that up in case there's something here.
Connor's site. I got a site for you. I'm testing. Go to this site to talk to Connor. Of course, you can go to the site.
Yeah.
I'm, this is a service I'm bringing. Be very transparent. If anything signs up, yes, I get an affiliate. But this is how to find off-market deal. And if you haven't found any leads through on market and they're just not plentiful enough, you've got to go off market. So this is, I think, one of the best services I've seen out there that meet all the criteria that I was looking for. So I'm going to right now start open for questions. Veronica had her hand up first, so fire away. You can come on.
Guys,
Veronica.
nice to meet you. Thank you for the intro. Two questions. The first one, I didn't understand how you guys get paid. How do you make money?
Great question. So we do not act as brokers. We do not charge broker fees. which in my opinion is the reason why we get so many responses from sellers. But there's no broker fees, there's no transaction fee, there's no success fee, there's no finder's fee. So if there's anything associated with purchase price or whatever, we don't associate with that. What we do is basically charge off a 3-month subscription for services rendered. So what we're doing is getting the leads, contacting, setting the appointments, booking them on the calendars for our clients. And that 3-month period subscription is what we charge for.
And how much is that?
So it's a 3-month subscription for just $4,500. So we have 3 teams of doing 40 plus hours per week in terms of vetting the calls or vetting the leads, making the calls, reaching out to the different off-market sellers, and then setting those appointments directly on the calendar. So it's more or less of having, an army of like 10 to 50 VAs per person that can go out and work for you for $1,500 a month.
And how many leads should we expect on those 3 months access to?
So we give you the 1,000 plus leads up front. Typically, we'll do somewhere near 1,050. We do that for just record keeping or some clean data things, but you'll get all of those immediately. And then over the course of the 3 months, like I said, we could have tons and tons of appointments booked, but in terms of expectation setting, 1.5% to about 2.5 or 3%. So 15 to 30 different businesses booked on your calendar.
Now,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
The leads are you have a access subscription to Reference USA or Data Axle, something like that. Is that what you're saying?
No, the leads are from a proprietary database that we've actually sourced ourselves. So the businesses and their contact information, what we provide in that lead list is name, business name, email, phone number, website, social links, etc. We give all of that to every single client to do a full review before we even begin. And that's sourced from literally anywhere on the internet.
so just to understand, sorry that I'm asking so many questions. So
No.
if I subscribe to your business, then I will be competing with everybody that is in my same criteria?
No.
Or-
So very good question. That was a huge kind of piece of the puzzle to figure out when we started, was how do we use data reconciliation and aggregation to make sure every single person we talk to gets 1,000 fresh leads. So if there's parameters that you have and we know that it couldn't match up, we'll tell you, oh, okay, this wouldn't work to get to the 1,000. That, rarely ever happens, less than 1% of the time. But what we typically do is we make sure that 1,000 fresh leads actually get delivered directly to you so that you're the first one to reach out to these businesses.
Okay, good. And my last question, I'm sorry that I'm asking many questions. What is the level of massage that you give these, potential sellers, right?
The limit of message, I'm sorry?
No, the level of how do you massage them? What is the readiness to have a real conversation with a potential buyer?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, the emails themselves, they go out as like we're representing our clients. So for John, it's like we say, hey, my name's John, fellow business owner in the area, saw your business. Are you open to offers? And a ton of other little data points. But post that, we'll have phone calls come in and say, hey, I appreciate you reaching out either via call, text, email back to us saying you were interested in hearing offers. How ready are you? Are you in a spot to sell? Do you just want to hear a big number? Tell me more about you. Tell me more about the business. What was your revenue, EBITDA, etc. And so we gather all of those notes and then wrap up that cold calling call with, great. Well, like I said, I work directly for John. Would love to set you up with John and, put something on the calendar. He's excited to talk to you. Phone call, virtual call, next Friday, 2 p.m. Does that work for you? There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Let me clarify or
Yeah.
get more clarity on one of the questions. So if Veronica's in Austin and Rodney's in Austin, they're looking for essential services, won't there be a overlap if I'm looking for HVAC businesses in Austin?
There could be. There's quite a few HVAC companies just in Austin, Texas. And then if you're kind of dead set and going into Austin, you give us, hey, I want the employee count to be this, the revenue to be this, and there's not a separation between you and, let's say, other client B, then we'll say, hey, we haven't been able to firmly established going through all these leads for client B, whether these companies may be interested in selling or not. So we only have this amount for your 1,000 leads that would be less than that. And we would work in either discussing, do you want to move forward with that and, talk about how that works in the 3-month process, or if you're open to business models similar to this exact HVAC, plumbing, you pick and choose a ton of different things that we can kind of coordinate with. Then we go from there to determine, hey, does that work for you or not?
Gotcha. And that's an understanding from the, let's say if you're a buyer or private equity, you're going to have to go outside your range, right?
Sure.
Outside Austin or Dallas or something to find
Yeah.
a good company at a fair price.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. When private equity companies reach out to certain industries or companies inside of Austin or Dallas or Houston, the odds are very, very high that a private equity company also did the same thing. So it could be a matter of, people reaching out to these companies that have already been reached out to. We don't do that with any of our current clients, is what I'm trying to get at. So if it's a client that has very niche down, narrowed, specific industries or businesses that they're after, we'll build that list completely catered to them, and they will be fresh leads.
Okay. Brian Nelson's got a question.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, guys. This has been super helpful. I had a couple of questions. Number one, could you maybe share what distribution of your clients are doing industry-specific searches versus, I guess, industry agnostic or geographic searches?
Just percentages out of our current clients?
Yeah, I think you said you had 170. So I was just wondering what split is industry specific versus geographic?
Braden might be able to help on this too, but industry specific versus agnostic, it's more 65-70% are industry specific. And then, the 35-30 is, or I guess what I would say is more industry agnostic is people that say, hey, this is the type of business model that I want. If I could do this, maybe own it, operate it remotely, use it with an operator in control. Here's the kind of ideal setup for what I'm looking for. And then I'm open to any and every industry. Like an HVAC company is the same thing as a landscaping company to me, if I can hit these numbers and it can be operated in this type of way. Hopefully that answers your question.
So Brian, I got a question for you back at you. Is that because you haven't decided on an industry yet versus, private equity will come to Connor, or I assume that, hey, look, we're looking for HVAC companies with 2 million EBITDA and up in the United States. Is that why you're looking or asking that question?
I'm doing a geographic search. So, and I have industry targets in mind, but I'm not necessarily stuck on them. So just curious what other people are doing. When you're building your list, are you using NAICS code or is it by SIC code? How do you kind of think about your starting point?
Brian, you know your stuff. All sorts of different starting points. So yeah, it could be the NAICS code or some sort of categorization, or we pull corporate data from tons of different websites that show every single LLC formed. But the contact information is tough. We use a ton of different matching things to source the correct phone number, email, not only to the business, but to the business owner, so that we can make these types of requests or comments, emails to gather initial interest if they would be selling. But I would be probably the worst person to talk to in terms of what that algorithm or program has. I mean, I have off camera two computers that are just running full time in terms of pulling data constantly, and we run it through a program so that we can have it inside of our own internal database. But if it's related to NAICS code, great. If it's something else, then we always pull that data, push it together, and then we give access to our clients to say, like I said, here's every company that we've been able to find that would match in that 1,000 company list. And we're in that full review, kind of talk through, here's where we found this, here's where we found that.
Cool. I just have two more questions. I'm sorry, I don't want to monopolize, but
no.
What percentage of your clients extend beyond the 3 months, or I guess of the 170 that you have now? What's your kind of forecast around that?
So some of the clients that we work with, in a good sense, we might actually fill up the calendar a little too much. And if people want to come back, they may come back in after another 3-month period or 6-month period, and that's totally fine with us. We've gotten tons of feedback where it's like, hey, this is great. I need you to actually pause what you're doing, and I've got too much on my plate to kind of handle it. Can I start this again in 5 months, 6 months, whatever it might be? And we say yes. So the percentage of people that tell us to pause or maybe go through that route is probably 20-30%. And then the remainder we have conversations with and determine, hey, these people are great, but if we filled up their calendar a lot, they may not get back to us in terms of their own timing and availability, but they're persistent, or we're persistent enough to constantly keep in touch and then maybe continue to work together. But what we're starting to see is people will do a 3-month period, and they'll most likely take a 3-month period off to kind of deal with the flow or the overwhelming sense of all these appointments, but then say, hey, let's start in that 6-month period and then revamp it. And I say, great.
So then they renew, and then they get a new contract with you for another 3 months?
Correct.
Okay, got it. That's great. And then last question, and I might have misunderstood on the example for the HVAC. If you have 2 clients looking for HVAC companies in the same market, how do you prioritize, or do you give exclusivity to clients, or how does that work?
Good question. Exclusivity is something we're currently talking through right now. We don't have it set up where that's something we would do. What we're planning and what's currently our operation is if someone's going for HVAC in Austin, someone else is interested in Austin, we narrow it down in terms of like revenue, EBITDA guess, payroll data, and then employee count. And if someone's wanting a smaller type business versus a larger type business, that's kind of how we would start to separate them. But we're always open to talking to people to say like, hey, full disclosure, we're working with unnamed client B who's also interested in this area. These are kind of the size companies they're after. What's available would be right here. And then still getting to that point of let's figure out how to get you 1,000+ leads so that you're still whole.
Yeah, by the way, these HVAC companies, just to pick on them, they're accustomed to getting a couple phone calls per week now
Yeah.
of people wanting to buy them, financial and strategic.
Agreed. Yeah, I would say that it is definitely the case that we have had people hit the same people. It's not common. I'd say it's only been a few times, but it's all about timing too. We try and correct for that as much as possible, but you never know whenever you're going to hit that person. Let's say, I'm going to pick names here. Let's say Brian and Veronica. Veronica. First off, it has never happened where Brian and Veronica are both clients that come to us at the exact same time and say they want the exact same thing. Trying to pick between Brian and Veronica, I don't know how we will end up solving that issue and say you get half of them, Brian gets half, Veronica gets the other half. We'll figure that out when that business problem approaches us. But let's say that they came in at different times, staggered times, and Brian hits HVAC owner right after a real big job just got done and he just got his contract closed, right? He just got his final payments from a big construction HVAC installation job. He's happy. He's not selling to Brian. But let's say 3 months later, he gets an email from Veronica, and that happens to be a time where he just had 2 employees quit, and he's got a big job that he's behind on, and now he's maybe he's threatened to get sued by the GC or whatever. He might be happy to be like, Veronica, take this problem off my hands. So timing is a lot here, y'all. S&B owners, they go through phases where they want to sell and they go through phases where they don't want to sell. It's just like all of us. Things are good and things are bad. So, I like the fixation on making sure that you have the exclusive leads. And like Connor said, we try our best to make sure that you have leads that haven't been touched, but that can't happen forever. Someday we're going to have 50,000 clients through our pipeline and every deal ever is going to be touched. That doesn't mean that the timing is right the first time it was hit, So I do understand the concern there. It's unlikely that 2 people will hit the same stuff at the exact same time. But that's my general 2 cents.
Connor, Brayden, I have a question for you about when you sign those leads out and the individual is calling the owner. What's tell me a little bit about what you learned about the quality of the person taking that phone call, asking that question, because a guy running a $2.5 million HVAC company is talking to somebody that really doesn't know what they're talking about. They're just collecting information. What did you learn about that experience, and who to
That's
put it in that position?
absolutely, yeah, no, that nails the head, or the nail on the head, in terms of why we probably get as much business as we do, because everyone can think of, yeah, it would be great to use my knowledge and what I have, but do I have the time 48 hours a week to make calls constantly? No. But if I hired a VA, or if I hired interns, if I hired anyone else to do that, would they have the knowledge and skill set and training to actually go out and do that? And that training piece takes up so much of our time. Working with the different people that are making the calls and going through coaching, and everything's recorded so that we can come back and say, like, hey, here's exactly how we need to approach calling these types of business owners. This industry, that size, this location, all the different metrics, and then keep repeating the data, actually have an internal type of note, or through Notion, where there's constant moving pieces that people are getting trained on, so that they can understand and know, okay, here's how I need to talk to a plumbing company owner doing 2.5 million in revenue, and what's understanding, how they operate with contracts or whatever it might be. That takes up, like I said, tons of time in just terms of training, which is why we have people say, okay, I don't have to train anyone. You guys will just handle that. You already have all the data and everything else. Let me just hand it off to you. So the quality of the people that we have doing all of that are, in my opinion, they're better than me in being able to go out there, spend 40 plus hours a week making all of these calls, because they have the same data that I do, but they're also doing it way more than I am too. They're so friendly. They're way over the top and being professional and funny and everything, engaging wise, so that these business owners are actually very welcoming to a conversation that we set on your calendar directly for you.
Yeah, can I jump in too? I love that question,
Yeah.
John. And I'm going to start with a little story. Long ago, when we first started doing this, and we were putting together these large lists of leads. Let's say somebody was interested in an accounting business. People would get frustrated because we would deliver a list of leads for an accounting business, and Ernst and Young would be on there, and we would just be like, "Oh, we just blew this! Like, come on! Like, we all know we're not buying Ernst and Young, right?" But it's like training an AI. Obviously, that's the hot topic here. We aren't using AI internally, but it's like training one with all of these people on the team, where mistakes happen, you correct it, and then the mistakes don't happen again. And you iterate these steps over and over and over. And functionally, that's our business mode. It happened on the lead sourcing and generation side, where now we have great lists of leads. And now we've really gotten it honed in on the calling side, where people had y'all caught us 6 months ago with our calling service, you probably would have been so frustrated they would have been fumbling over themselves, that we probably still had people who could barely speak English. There were issues. And so the competitive moat is, we learn those lessons over time, and we make those documents to help people train up and correct. And that's how you build the well-oiled machine. You don't just wake up tomorrow and it's all put together. Takes time and effort and correction.
Yeah.
I got a question from Charles. Did Connor say the experience sourcing industry real estate as well?
Yes, I saw that, Charles. Yes. In the little context story that we gave, that's where we started, in sourcing off-market deals, was in commercial real estate, and very high learning environment, and gathering, putting data together, and then delivering it. But yes, if that's something you're of interest in, would love to talk to you as well.
Did that answer your question, Charles? Yes. I have another question. What do these leads look like? You talked about, hey, are you just looking for a big number, or are they death, divorce, disinterested? Like, what's their motivation for selling, to get on the phone with somebody to answer a couple questions, and then to get to a face-to-face with you, or a Zoom call with you?
Yeah. We send out hundreds of thousands of emails per month. We have tons of communications that's going out. I believe that we have the forefront of data in terms of actually determining why people are interested in selling. And there's kind of been an issue. I apologize if anyone on here is a business broker. I do value business brokers, but when a off-market seller or a business owner is given a call by a broker, they typically just hang up. There's a very high, I guess, age range in terms of the average age of business owners. Like we've all seen that data, right? The silver tsunami is coming, kind of different generation taking over the reins, transfer of wealth, whatever it might be. The reason most of these people actually aren't trying to go through selling their company, even though they may be really open to it, is because they don't want to engage with a broker who's going to charge a 10 to 15% fee, astronomically higher than kind of what you would deal in, typical homeowner real estate fees. That's number one. And number two is what's really funny is they don't have the time. We're talking to tons of people who say, great, I'm traveling for the next 6 weeks. I've got a 15-minute bathroom break in 2 weeks that I'm going to allow myself to take. And then the hour after that, I can talk to you. And I said, great. They strap themselves because they've been running the business for so long. And it could be extremely hard to kind of take over the reign to maybe do the exact same thing that they're doing, but they're not actively looking to sell because they don't want another task. They don't want another 5 to 10 hours of work of like putting everything together for their business and going through the process of listing and creating a sim for the broker to hand out to everyone. They don't want that. And when you just call and you say, hey, I'd happily set you up on a great date for free on a silver platter. Are you free next Tuesday at 4 p.m.? They're happy to talk. And they're like, yeah, like here are the numbers. And if somebody actually has their stuff put together, that's a great client or buyer or investor to actually speak with.
Let me ask you a little deeper question on that. How do when you're handing off the football to us, like I'm a little more direct and I'll just say, hey, look, for me to value your company, I need to see 3 to 5 years of P&L statements. I need the balance sheets, 2 of those. I need some cash flow statements, 2 of those. Instead of doing that, how has your experience been with those that are successful? Like you hand off the football, but there's got to be a little more massaging going on, building a relationship.
Totally. And we'll be very honest with our clients and say like, hey, we will ask for all of these pieces of information as your representative. They will maybe sometimes tell us, hey, we just want to speak directly to Jon. And it's a very relationship-based game where there are certain questions. If you show up to a first date, you don't ask, right? You guys can all think of what those questions are. You do on a first date.
On the first date?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not
Sure.
saying we're going to set an appointment and they've already accepted your LOI and the appointment is a closing date. Heck no. This is very off market, very interested to sell, people, owners that are willing to have conversations and they're dating. And right now, you're the only person talking to them. That I can guarantee. You're the only suitor, the only person who's actually going to make an offer. And if it works out, it works out.
Yeah, I think you nailed that, Connor. Jon, same thing. You show up to a date, you don't ask people for their most recent, tests and exams. We highly recommend with clients. This is a longer process, right? An off-market deal is not 3 months like you do with a broker who's already gone through the process, gotten them prepared to sell, and they're excited to leave. This is early stage dating. And we have seen a couple of times people come in right off the bat hot with asking those questions, and it completely shuts the deal down. You really do have to enter these things being a person and understanding their likes, their dislikes. And sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes you will get somebody who's super direct, and you're feeling them out. But highly don't recommend asking those questions right off the bat, like you would with a broker or whenever a broker brings in a seller for the first time.
Correct. If the seller starts, if you say questions that are very strategic and asking like, hey, so financially, like, how's the business been going? And then they share literally everything. There you go. Some people will do that. But my whole point was like, hey, don't go into this date or appointment expecting to ask every single question if we don't have a specific data point or their P&L from 2021 or whatever it might be. It's very relationship based. This is their baby, and they're trying to determine if they are going to give their baby to you, even if it is for a crazy amount of money. They're still having to weigh that out. So very relationship based. That's why we always walk through like rapport, relationship questions, getting there. But we're really good at trying to set that up. Luis, I think I see a hand raised here.
Yeah, Luis did.
Yeah, I'm here in New York. When you was talking about, I'm also a real estate agent in New York. So when it
Nice.
comes when it comes to brokers, I definitely understand what you're saying. I recently made a parent company that's focused more in the medical supply distribution, medical supply distribution companies, more like assisted living or like, HME. And I remember I went down to upstate New York to visit a company called H&J Medical. It was joint accredited. And they were mostly just giving me, in the beginning, I sat down with his CFO and the stakeholders of the company, and they were giving me a load of projection and forecasts, And it seems like they were so scared to give me their tax returns, their last 4 years, 3 years. And mind you, they had a broker, right? So
Yeah.
they advertised that the company was making 500K and more in cash flow and 2.3 million in revenue. So when they sent us the financials, it was pretty ugly. It was really, really ugly. And I got into a little discussion with the broker because I said, you guys call yourselves business advisors. You guys are not advising anything.
Yeah.
Like they like you literally see that all the time on LinkedIn or whatever they advertise their stuff. Like, oh, you guys are business advisors, and we got into a kind of a alteration where I told them, like, listen, I am a real estate agent myself. I might not, sell businesses, but in real estate, when our seller's delusional, we tell them that it's delusional. They're delusional because if not, we're wasting our own time. And you know how they say time is money, so.
Yeah.
Brokers, what they usually do over here, what I see is that they just the seller wants to price it, if it's even if it's over the time's earnings, they just slap a price, sell it, whoever comes, you know what I mean? All they care about is the money,
Yeah.
But
100%.
but it's more like what the old saying goes: the best businesses are not for sale.
Yeah.
Meaning that you're not gonna find them on the market. You're just
Thank you.
not. Yeah.
I might steal that entire line from you, Luis, and feel free. We'll treat you to drinks and everything you want if you come to Austin, Texas. But the best businesses are not for sale is about to go on every piece of merchandise that we're about to make. That's so true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's very good. You guys all want a discount, just use Luis's name as a code. We'll make that something. That's fantastic, Luis. Thank you.
I have a little more
Hey, I've got
question
a
based
question.
upon Luis's question.
Yeah.
So a lot of these small businesses do not keep clean books. So the veracity of the claims that the caller is asking the seller, and how do you verify that? Like, hey, we're doing $2.5 million, and we get them, and is it just, I think I had the answer to the question. Is it just like, hey, look, I got to do my own DD. I could pass or pursue on these or not?
Yeah. It's pretty much that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we pretty much go about it. Even at that time, it was a tip-top shape operation, but what it looks like at that time, they acquired it from someone from the original owner in 2018, and they went into a lot of debt. And basically what they priced it at 3 million, and it was obviously overpriced. So their mindset was, when I was on the table with them and I visited the whole operation, they showed me the trucks, the facility, they showed me everything. It looked great. And they had told me, like, hey, if you try to finance this, it's not going to work, and then he started telling me the best thing to go is more to get private investors, so it's like your broker could have said that instead of wasting time, in a way. So that I got into literally a heated argument with the broker, because I'm like, you guys are not business advisors. You're not advising shit, like these guys, their taxes literally has negatives on it, you know? So it's like, it's bullshit. You know, I'm not, what I'm supposed to do with forecasts and projections, I can't take this shit to the bank, you know? But sorry for my language, but it's like that day I was so pissed off, man. Seriously.
Yeah, I think that if you've gone through the broker network, you'll find some good ones, then you'll find a whole lot of bad ones in there.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
It's like
pretty much.
they
Not
used to
all
I
say-
brokers.
see a question
I've
here.
got a question.
Oh, was that you or Neil? Go ahead.
I've got two quick questions. So I was wondering, like, what percentage of the sellers, like the motivated sellers that you're seeing, would be open to a majority seller finance deal? And then also, second question would be, what would be like the average kind of age range of the motivated sellers that you're seeing?
Very good question. The percentage wise of like seller financing, honestly, very high off market.
They're uneducated, Neil. These are uneducated sellers that don't know the. If you approach these seller and say, "Hey, I'm SBA pre-qualified. I'd love to buy your business," they're not going to know the words you just said. So
Yeah.
it's
So, but if you say seller finance, they understand, or
no, they don't. You don't say it like that either. This is a conversation where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, "Hey, look, I want to buy your business, but maybe I want to do a situation where I pay you out of the earnings for the next 3 years or something." You make it their language. It's a high amount, a high amount.
Yeah.
so a
I would
lot of
guess
them are
maybe-
getting kind of 100% seller financed, or
No, but I would say maybe close to 90. Could be 85, 90% are like, hey, let's go ahead and do the seller financing. Like Braden said, most, or call it maybe 5, 10% will be kind of seller educated and how to go about a sale and be open to let's do an SBA loan and kind of set it all up. But the vast majority, if you're like, hey, if this is all built on relationship and I'm spending 6 months just really getting to know you and then really getting to know the business, they're going to be extremely open to like, okay, if I were to sell and you were to take over and then you had to pay this loan back, what would that loan be and how would we structure it? Most, I mean, 90% are very open to that and like, hey, let's figure this out. If you get a seller to that point of, okay, I really like Neil and this is great, they will want to help you put the deal together, is what we
Yeah, it is true. I actually heard of the story on YouTube. Some guy, he's also in the plumbing industry. You probably heard of him. His name is Jason Paul Rogers. He's getting big in the M&A space, and he had mentioned how his first deal was 88% seller finance. Because he built that report. And he had a story where like the seller had his son, and his son was kind of acting up, and the son left the house, and Jason Paul was saying how he was playing more of the role of the son, trying to build a rapport, in a good relationship with the seller, like going to bars to drink. And he was able to get an 88% seller finance, so rapport does go a long way.
Yeah, and let me throw
Absolutely.
something in the verse is don't take 100% seller finance deal to broker dealer. I mean, they're going to get probably 5 to 10 offers on the business, and they'll put them in the front of the seller and go, hey, here's one that's SBA. Here's one that's going to be putting 50% down from their 401k. Hey, and you put a 100% seller finance and they go, that's too risky. They may not even put it in front of the seller. I got a couple questions here, Connor.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to recap really quickly. So you're saying that they were about 90% in your experience are open to seller finance, and is that open to 100%? Just to clarify, is that open to 100% seller
90% of the
finance?
sellers that, they're open to negotiating, starting talking, are open to talking some sort of seller financing.
He's
Okay,
asking
okay.
how
So
much
not-
seller financing. I don't think we have a direct answer to that, Neil.
Yeah, I don't have that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, all good. Thanks, guys.
Connor,
Sure.
the question, hold on. There's somebody said, do you do international or who?
Yes.
asked that? I'm trying to find that.
So we do currently Canada and Australia in addition to the US. There, you guys get the sneak peek. We're currently working on setting it up pretty extensively in the UK. If you guys are familiar with S&B and private equity there, the data is way crazier in terms of you can figure out because they're private companies what the revenue and everything else is. But we're currently talking through partnerships for the UK, but US, Canada, Australia.
Veronica, how long have you been in business and how many deals have you been closed under your radar?
Okay.
I
Very
was
good
just typing back to that. Go ahead, Connor. I was literally typing.
No, I was gonna get to it. So we've been in business for 4 years. Like I said, we started in 2020. Over that course of time, we've been able to set over, what is it, Braden? Like 1,200, 1,100 different appointments through finding off-market deals for every sort of client. Now, in terms of businesses that have closed, we're not the ones closing the businesses. Like I said, we'll just set the appointments. Depends on how good you are at negotiating and maybe talking to people and making people like you enough to sell you their business or their commercial real estate property. But we do know of at least, last year's numbers were under 30 businesses that we do know got to a point of closing.
That's good. I got a question from Brett. Braden answered it, but Brett, I'm gonna read it off. How do you make more of a personal outreach instead of just a representative of the buyer? I sold my business recently and hearing from a representative, the buyer really lost the personal touch on the outreach. This personal touch is even more.
Yes.
You want to come on and ask that, Brett?
No, I saw Braden approach that too, and I agree with everything he said there, Brett. If you were able to read his message, I'll just add to the fact that this goes into our onboarding call with all clients to determine, hey, you don't have 40 hours a week to make these calls. So when we're doing it on your behalf, sometimes, we'll have certain people make the calls. Do you want this person to be referred to as your assistant, representative? How do you want that to come across? Especially if your narrow niche could be elderly, or not elderly, but older age group sellers. So we kind of discuss all of that because that representation matters because you're not the one making the initial calls. But from the point of view of a seller, if they're like, oh, John's assistant, Connor, was giving me a call and really nice guy, asked these questions, said, John's very interested in the business, wanted to set up a call directly with John. Okay, that makes sense. It just depends on how or what language you're open to using, and we kind of just cater from there.
Cool. Anybody want to ask other question? I always ask this of my guests: is there anything I didn't ask that I should be asked and other people ask? They're pretty smart about this, like a private equity firm. Like they ask all these questions before they sign you up. And
no, it's perfect. I did see, John, that you included the link. Is that correct? Yes. Perfect. Because I know there's maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands of questions, and we would love to go through them all. People are very interested, especially when you start saying, hey, let's get you off-market businesses that are open to selling. You get to cater the conversations and negotiations. But if you're picking up on what we're saying on this call, everything is custom made. The leads we generate, the types of businesses we put together, the way we handle communication, what we can say in emails and texts, how we even describe or clarify the person making the calls, assistant, representative, whatever. Everything is catered custom to you, which is why we want to put it together. And the value add simply is, hey, you don't have 40 plus hours a week to maybe go after this. If you do, this probably isn't for you. This is meant for somebody who is very serious about searching, that just doesn't have that type of time, and it makes more sense for a business or an agency like ours to really put it together. But a phone call or that Calendly link sets up a virtual call with us where we can really dive deep into all of that. And then, of course, hey, let's figure out what's perfect for you.
cool. All right, folks, any more questions? Ask now or Alex Kusher, I know you usually have a lot of questions. Okay.
Apologies. Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, I believe Connor and I already talked some time ago. So yeah, I'm still debating which direction I'm going to go. But yeah, it seems like whatever Connor is saying, it's makes sense. It's really depends on what you're looking for and what kind of services and what time you have. Absolutely agreed with statement Connor made.
Yeah, I just want to go back to that. It's really about your deal flow, getting at bats. I mean, the more opportunities you have in front of you, the better deals in a better company you'll have the choice of making. I mean, so many times I've seen a lot of my students, they'll just focus on this one deal, and look, it's it's not financeable, or here's the risk, or this, and they'll try to make it work a number of ways. What you need is just more deal flow. And also emotionally, what is the Buddha talks about, the attachment leads to a suffering. If you're only looking at a couple of deals, you're going to create these sandcastles in the sky. And if it falls out, you're going to be disappointed. The point is, you want these 10 deals, 20 deals, whatever, to be looking at all the time. The more bountiful that is, the less pain and suffering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The at-bats matters a ton. Guys, I'll also, John, you or I could kind of throw the link in the LinkedIn event post too, just as a comment or something where people can go back to. And this is just open to the entire room, and we appreciate talking. If you sign up for a call by the end of the day today, Braden and I have a business. It's an off-market seller. He's a very motivated seller. It's in Denver, Colorado. I won't say the business type or any other specifics, but it does just over $5 million in revenue. It does over 2 million, or it's just at $2 million in EBITDA. And what the seller is asking for is 2.5. So if you want to talk about that business, if you sign up by the end of today, I will share that direct business owner contact directly to you, and we'd be happy to chat.
Oh,
it's a hot lead.
Anybody in Denver? Nobody's going to raise their hand and tell them in their Denver because they want that. They're just going to sign up. Yeah.
I just saw Charles say amazing. Charles, sign up. We'll talk.
All right. Yes. So Connor, Braden, thanks for joining us today. This is recorded, so it will go out, but it's not going to go out probably till next week. Get your meeting. If this is of interest, get your meeting with Connor and Braden, just explore this possibility. So if you want to buy a business, you got to have on-market, off-market deal flow. You have to have deal flow. You got to get your at-bats. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for the time. Appreciate y'all's time, everybody.
Yep. Nice meeting
you. All
you.
right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, showing up.